Salim Bardai, President of the Barrie Chamber of Commerce, has a message for Canadians this election. Bardai, who recently celebrated 50 years in Canada, shared a story about how his immigrant father taught him the importance of voting when he was young.
From my perspective, as a son of an immigrant, I can tell you every vote counts. And if you're in this country, it's the greatest country in the world because it allows you to have a voice in shaping our future. I was young and naive and didn't think my vote mattered until my father showed me the way in 1988. And when I was eligible to vote, he made me come out and make sure that I voted, and I haven't missed a vote since. It's one of the greatest privileges I ever have. And now that I've got a son, it's one of the greatest privileges I can show him is that I can vote for the future of our country and stand by the future of our country, making us the greatest country in the world.
Bardai spoke to Simcoe Community Media after the election forum, where candidates for Barrie South, Innisfil presented their platforms to voters. In this riding, John Brassard of the Conservative Party is trying to retain his seat against challengers Mark Sampson of the People's Party of Canada, Andrew Harrigan of the NDP, and John Olthuis of the Liberal Party. The NDP candidate did not attend the forum. At the final all candidates event, the three present candidates outlined their visions for Canada with a particular focus on the business community.
This is a message that I've heard from the Canadian Chamber of Commerce. I've heard it in my discussions with Salim and Paul as well, is the removal of interprovincial trade barriers. Removing interprovincial trade barriers represents a roughly 7% increase into our GDP and can contribute $17 billion to our economy every single year. And we have committed, and Pierre Poilievre has committed, that within 30 days he will sit down with the provincial premiers and not leave that table until an agreement is in place. $17 billion added to our economy is significant, again, in the backdrop of insulating ourselves from those threats from the U.S. president. The other thing that's important, and I've heard this from many local businesses, not just at a local, provincial, but also at a federal level, the need to establish a Buy Canada procurement policy that employs Canadian workers and uses Canadian products. Far too often our local businesses and our manufacturers are excluded from procurement because of policies that aren't favorable to Canadian companies, Canadian manufacturers. That's one of the things that we are going to establish and is part of our platform policy.
Sure, you can all agree that Canada is the best country in the world and our sovereignty is under threat. America's unjustified trade war is an attempt to weaken us, and we'll not let that happen, especially under Mark Carney. It's time to build a future that makes us much more than a foreign government, including the United States, can ever take away. So by working together as Canadians, we can actually build more. We'll be stronger than anybody can take away, including Trump. Building one Canadian economy, for example, can expand our economy. We've got to, John mentioned $17 billion. We figured $200 billion. So proof of that is the strongest when we're united. To unite this country, Mark Carney-led government will build one economy where Canadians can work wherever they want, where goods can move freely from coast to coast to coast, where the government's significant purchasing power buys Canadian goods and supports Canadian industries and workers, where we use domestic strength to grow a strong economy can never be taken away. As Canadians, we have our own unique identity, history, and geography. To keep Canada strong, we'll protect our culture, protect our environment, and protect our core values, and continue to build a true partnership with Indigenous peoples.
And I want to talk to you today not as a politician, but as a citizen. I'm married for 25 years. I have amazing girl-boy twins, currently at the University of Ottawa, and I've resided in Cookstown for about 10 years. I work in Barrie with small business owners determined to turn their business into an asset so that they can achieve their lifestyle and their legacy goals. And as with most Canadians, I'm concerned. I'm concerned about our skyrocketing deficit and debt. I'm concerned with how quickly the cost of everything is rising. Housing, food, education, red tape, regulation, and taxes. I'm concerned students, after spending tens of thousands of dollars on post-secondary education, can't find jobs and continue living at home. I'm concerned seniors needing care assistance, and after waiting up to 5 years for a spot to open in a retirement residence, will run out of money due to astronomical cost, or not have access to vital services should they wish to remain in their home.
Conservative candidate left early, but we had the opportunity to speak with the candidates from the People's Party of Canada and the Liberal Party about why they believe they are the best candidates to replace the incumbent. These are our interviews and coverage of the event.
We're at an event tonight which is very valuable to informing our citizens about the South Barrie riding. We put this event together and not only to hear from the candidates in terms of what their priorities are, but to know what their priorities are within the Barrie community, be it business, people, and finance. I think our community has the same challenges many communities across Canada do, and whether it be homelessness, the tariff war with U.S., and the uncertain future of the economy, and finding clarity within the trade barriers. We've actually gone to the Chamber of Commerce with a policy in working with South Simcoe, the county, and it's to stabilize the homelessness and make sure that we have the right accurate counts. From our perspective, it affects businesses and it affects the way we run our communities. So making sure that we have a number helps us with that. From my perspective, as a son of an immigrant, I can tell you every vote counts. And if you're in this country, it's the greatest country in the world because it allows you to have a voice in shaping our future. I was young and naive and didn't think my vote mattered until my father showed me the way in 1988. And when I was eligible to vote, he made me come out and make sure that I voted, and I haven't missed a vote since. It's one of the greatest privileges I ever have. And now that I've got a son, it's one of the greatest privileges I can show him is that I can vote for the future of our country and stand by the future of our country, making us the greatest country in the world.
Thank you.
A Conservative candidate for the new riding of Barrie South Innisfil. And I thought I'd start by thanking the Chamber for hosting the event tonight. I really value the relationship that we've developed over the last 9.5 years, and even before that, as a city councilor. I've been representing our community now for 19 years, both as a city councilor and as the Member of Parliament, and the work that the Chamber does advocating on behalf of businesses in our city and manufacturers in our city is to be commended. They work very hard. I know Paul is a strong voice, and certainly the Ontario Chamber and the Canadian Chamber are strong voices, and I meet with them in Ottawa every chance that I get. At the onset, I will say, on March 7th, I received an invitation to speak to the Simcoe County Manufacturers Association, and I am going to be going to that event tonight. I made that commitment to them. They're holding a meeting, and they've asked me to be the guest speaker, so I will be leaving well before this event ends. I thought I'd focus on a couple of things, particularly as it relates to our economy and what it means to put Canada first for a change. That's been the theme of our campaign. A Conservative government will ensure that every decision that we make when we form government is through the lens of putting our nation first for a change. And what that means is simple. We have all seen the threats of President Trump. We have to insulate ourselves as a nation and as an economy from those threats, and it's very difficult. It's a very difficult situation to deal with, as you can imagine, because everything changes almost on a daily basis, and so it's tough to negotiate in that regard. And so the one thing that we are going to do, and this will help businesses as well as consumers, is to scrap the carbon tax for good. The carbon tax was paused just before the election. It's a highly unpopular consumer carbon tax. The government paused it. They didn't scrap the legislation. That's one of the things that we were calling for. They could have recalled Parliament to do that. The consumer carbon tax has cost families significantly more than they've been getting back. The Parliamentary Budget Officer has confirmed that. But we've also got the industrial carbon tax that's still in effect, and the import emissions tax that will be applied. This has a cascading effect throughout our economy, and it makes sense that when you tax the consumer, or you tax the farmer who makes food, you tax the transporter who transports food, you tax the wholesaler, and eventually tax the retailer, it's the end consumer that ends up paying the price. And so we've seen that through a cascading effect throughout our economy, and it's one of the reasons why we have an affordability crisis in this country. So we'll do that for good. The other thing that we're going to do is scrap the capital gains tax for good, to encourage investment in this country, reinvestment into the various sectors, scrapping the capital gains tax for good. The increase that was proposed by the government will be scrapped, and it will be brought back down to 50%. The one thing that I'm really excited about, and I think business should be excited about this across the country, is the establishment of a tax reform task force that we are going to be establishing that will include farmers, builders, entrepreneurs, economists, and workers, not Ottawa insiders, to deliver a very simple and straightforward tax code. There are many, many layers to our tax code. Businesses, through increased burdens in taxation, have found it very, very difficult to operate within the existing tax code. But by calling everyone to the table, including our chambers of commerce and representatives of the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, we can establish a tax code that works and is fair for everyone. Critically important for our country is to fix our budget. Right now we have systemic budget deficits that are going to increase under the current Liberal government. Their plan certainly made that clear the other day. We've got a deficit of $62 billion. We've got debt that has been doubled to $1.4 trillion. The interest on that debt, just to put it in context, is more than what we transfer to the provinces in healthcare. We have to get our spending and we have to get our debt under control if our economy is to be sustained going forward. The other thing that's critical, and this is a message that I've heard from the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, I've heard it in my discussions with Salim and Paul as well, is the removal of interprovincial trade barriers. Removing interprovincial trade barriers represents a roughly 7% increase into our GDP and can contribute $17 billion to our economy every single year. And we have committed, and Pierre Poilievre has committed, that within 30 days he will sit down with the provincial premiers and not leave that table until an agreement is in place. $17 billion added to our economy is significant, again, in the backdrop of insulating ourselves from those threats from the U.S. president. The other thing that's important, and I've heard this from many local businesses, not just at a local, provincial, but also at a federal level, the need to establish a Buy Canada procurement policy that employs Canadian workers and uses Canadian products. Far too often our local businesses and our manufacturers are excluded from procurement because of policies that aren't favorable to Canadian companies, Canadian manufacturers. That's one of the things that we are going to establish and is part of our platform policy. We talked about controlling spending, critical, controlling spending on the bureaucracy, consultants, foreign aids, and handouts to insiders and special interest groups. I have been the chair of the Commons Committee on Ethics. I've had a front row seat to all of the insider connected cronyism, all of the things that have been going on where money has been flying out the door to well-connected insiders, and that needs to stop in order to fix the spending and budget problem that we have. The other thing that's critical is to unleash our energy sector. Canada has the third and fifth largest reserves of LNG and oil in the world. We have to build pipelines in this country, and we are going to repeal Bill C-69 and C-48 in order to get our products to market. And I'll give you an example. We've lost $200 billion in the last 10 years of revenue from our oil and gas sector. In fact, the German Chancellor came here 2 years ago seeking a $27 billion deal for LNG so that he can get himself off and his country off of the dependence of Russian oil and gas. Japan's Prime Minister came here, and in both cases they were cast aside. We've got an ideological attack on our resource sector, and we are not getting the wealth that we need and the revenues that we need from that sector that could look after three things: healthcare, education, and looking after the most vulnerable in our society. In fact, the German Chancellor went to Qatar 2 weeks after coming to Ottawa and signed a $27 billion deal with Qatar for LNG. The Japanese Prime Minister just recently went down to the United States and signed a $900 billion deal with the Americans. Why not Canada? Why can't we benefit from that? And if we want to insulate ourselves from the threats of the United States because they're not a reliable partner anymore, clearly, that's become apparent over the course of the last 5 months, we have to do that in order to look after ourselves. We've got the best environmental standards, best labor standards, best human rights standards, and best innovation standards in the world with our clean Canadian energy. If Canada's not supplying the world, we need to supply. If we're not supplying the world, then Russia is supplying the world. Iran is supplying the world while supporting their proxies of Hezbollah and Hamas. Argentina and other despot nations. If we want to do our part on climate change, let's feed the world with clean Canadian energy and do our part. And I will say, lastly, that a lot of the problems that we're facing have happened over the last 10 years, and they were well in advance of the Trump presidency. We've got crime pervading our streets. We've got a housing affordability and a housing attainability crisis. Young people have lost hope. In fact, many of them feel despair that they're never going to have home ownership again. We've got, as I said, budget problems, high debt, high deficit. We can't keep going on the path that we're going on. We need change, and we need to fix the problems that exist, and that includes an immigration system that has created an open border system right now. We need controlled and measured immigration, and I'm not blaming immigrants because we need immigrants in this country to backfill on a retirement, and the skill set that they need. We can't have an open border policy because we're seeing the effects of that on our healthcare system, on education, and we're certainly seeing it on the streets across the country. Let me leave you with this. There are two things that we want to do. We want to be in government to run the government, not to run your lives, not to interfere in what you see and say online or any of the other freedoms that we get to enjoy as Canadians. And the second thing that we want to do is do a few things right, not everything wrong. And if that's the measure of success of any government, I'll take that any day over what we've seen over the last 10 years. And you know how a government is successful? When you don't hear from the government. And we are going to do everything we can to restore the hope and promise of our nation so that young people can once again succeed in this country after 10 years of this lost decade of the Liberal Party. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Our second candidate is John Olthuis.
Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate this opportunity to speak. And it's hard to follow John. He's a seasoned veteran at being a politician. But I'll do my best. I kind of did my homework because I think there was a request as far as the chamber was concerned about specific items and trying to answer some questions. So I actually did my speech in a manner that would kind of address some of these situations. Excuse me, some of them are going to actually mirror what John's been talking about. First, I'd like just to introduce myself. I've been in Barrie area. I started off here over 30 years ago in actually Oro-Medonte in the Sugarbush area. I came up here to work at Barrie Public Utilities. I was working in Guelph prior to that and came up here on a job offer, which is probably the best thing I've ever done. I found a home in Oro-Medonte and raised my children there, but I worked in Barrie. I've been living in Barrie since 2013. John and I are actually neighbors. John moved into the neighborhood about a year and a half ago or so, which is interesting. Not that we interact too much, but you can see his signs. And he saw me walking the dog one night. But so I'm a father of 5, and have 2 grandchildren. So my kids are they're not kids, they're adults. Some are I have 2 out in BC, 1 here in Barrie and 1 in Aurelia, and well, actually 2 here in Barrie. Sorry. So we're raising my grandkids here, and we're enjoying the city in itself. Excuse me if I do read, because I did put this together to try and fit into the 10 minutes that were allotted, so it took me a while to get this down to that. So my background is in marketing, customer service, and corporate communications in the electricity industry, as I mentioned. I was in the industry for over 30 years. I'm now retired. My specialty is taking complex issues and trying to, I'm not going to say it, okay, I will, dumb it down, but make it to a point where people can understand some of the technical aspects of how things work, particularly in the electrical industry. Why your lights flicker and go on and off 3 times and things like that when there's an issue. I don't think well, anyway, I try to explain that to people. And it says this skill has been particularly important when you're dealing with storms and so on. So as my background was into corporate communications near the end of my career. So I was dealing with storm situations, I remember prior to this storm, I spent basically got 4 hours sleep over Christmas one time, over a week. So just dealing with the communications aspect of that. So, and as you know, linemen, they don't grab electricity out of the sky. I don't know, there's somebody was quoted saying that they take it and put in copper wires and they bring it to your lights. That's Pierre. Okay, but it's more technical than that. But I could explain it, maybe not in that simple terms. But, the one thing is, we're talking about the environment. I consider myself an environmentalist, complete with solar panels on my roof, high efficiency windows, knee-deep insulation in my attic. I'm also vice chair of the Barrie Earth Hour Music Festival. Some of you remember that. We used to, when Earth Hour was originally a thing, we would set up a big stage downtown, and we brought local artists and so on. Would come down, and every Earth Hour we'd do a festival. I have a strong understanding of economics and business. I actually was a member of the board of directors of the Barrie Chamber here, where I actually was the treasurer. Sat on numerous committees, primarily in the areas of business development and the environment. I was one that brought the idea of bringing Power Stream on, which is now Electra, is one of the sponsors of the Chamber Awards. So we brought that in here. Needless to say, I also have a strong interest in politics. I ran for City Council Ward 10 in 2018, as MPP in 22, also with the Liberal Party. Liberal MP now under Mark Carney for 25. So I do know what it's all about, the hard work involved with this, and knocking doors and speaking with people and so on, getting things organized. So I have a very good team. The number of volunteers we have is just astronomical. We only have 250 signs, so if you're wondering, signs don't vote, but they're out there, and that's perhaps why you don't see so many of them. So part of that was environmental reasons, and some of it is also fiscal responsibility. Moving on, sure you can all agree that Canada is the best country in the world, and our sovereignty is under threat. America's unjustified trade war is an attempt to weaken us, and we'll not let that happen, especially under Mark Carney. It's time to build a future that makes Canada strong. We can give ourselves much more than a foreign government, including the United States, can ever take away. So by working together as Canadians, we can actually build more. We'll be stronger than anybody can take away, including Trump. Building one Canadian economy, for example, can expand our economy back to, John mentioned 17 billion. We figured $200 billion. So proof of that is the strongest when we're united. To unite this country, Mark Carney-led government will build one economy where Canadians can work wherever they want, where goods can move freely from coast to coast to coast, where the government's significant purchasing power buys Canadian goods and supports Canadian industries and workers, where we use domestic strength to grow a strong economy can never be taken away. As Canadians, we have our own unique identity, history, and geography. To keep Canada strong, we'll protect our culture, protect our environment, and protect our core values, and continue to build a true partnership with Indigenous peoples. Canadians are hardworking, generous, and sensible people. We care for each other, but our kindness should not be mistaken for weakness. We stand up to bullies and will never back down. Under Mark Carney, our plan is to unleash free trade in Canada by tabling legislation to eliminate all federal barriers in interprovincial trade and labor. By removing internal trade barriers, we can create higher paying jobs, unlock economic potential, and become stronger at home and abroad. Achieve mutual recognition of credentials of provinces and territories so Canadians can work wherever they want. So in the case of health professionals, professional qualifications for financial services, and trucking safety certifications can be transferred to any province. We're going to reduce red tape. We will require all relevant federal departments such as Transport Canada, Natural Resources Canada, and Innovation Science and Economic Development Canada to undertake review and eliminate outdated, unnecessary rules, reduce duplication or overlap with provincial rules. There's duplication, and that's just ridiculous. Protect our economic sovereignty and unlocking projects to grow the economy. We'll work with provinces and territories and Indigenous peoples to establish a list of nation-building projects that can span provincial and territorial borders and deliver major economic and strategic benefits to Canadians. We'll provide funding and assessment for these projects on an expedited basis. Nation-building projects. It's time to unite the country and invest in nation-building infrastructure on a scale that's not been seen in generations. Major nation-building projects will, you can tell a lot of what we're talking about is infrastructure and putting monies towards that. Not so much pipelines, because pipelines, they haven't been able to develop, 1 minute. So we haven't been able to put the justification as far as financially. If there was a viable reason to put a pipeline across Canada, there would have been a business case and somebody would have done it. And I'm talking private industry. Same as LNG. The issue there is if you can build a plant or a port, the problem is it's going to take 10, 20 years to build this. And by that time, we're probably moving on different types of energy is going to be needed. So we don't need to move our natural gas across the ocean. And countries like China and others do have their own natural gas, so they're not going to need our reserves. The other thing is shipping oil across the nation. It seems Newfoundland has a lot of oil out there, Hibernia. So why are we moving oil across the nation to ship it out from the East Coast? And when there's already oil there. And I guess the Liberal Party did twin the pipeline out west to get the oil to the coast. So that was very important. We've done that, and it's time. Okay, thank you. I have 4 more pages. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. Our final candidate of the evening is Mark Sampson.
Thank you for being here. Good evening, everybody. I want to thank the Barrie Chamber of Commerce for the opportunity to be here this evening. My name is Martin Short, and you might know me from the classic movies The Three Amigos or from my hit television show Only Murders in the Building. Not to diminish the importance of why we're here today, my name is Mark Sampson, and I am the People's Party of Canada representative for Barrie South, Innisfil. And I want to talk to you today not as a politician, but as a citizen. I'm married for 25 years. I have amazing girl-boy twins, currently at the University of Ottawa, and I've resided in Cookstown for about 10 years. I work in Barrie with small business owners determined to turn their business into an asset so that they can achieve their lifestyle and their legacy goals. And as with most Canadians, I'm concerned. I'm concerned about our skyrocketing deficit and debt. I'm concerned with how quickly the cost of everything is rising. Housing, food, education, red tape, regulation, and taxes. I'm concerned students, after spending tens of thousands of dollars on post-secondary education, can't find jobs and continue living at home. I'm concerned seniors needing care assistance, and after waiting up to 5 years for a spot to open in a retirement residence, will run out of money due to astronomical cost, or not have access to vital services should they wish to remain in their home. And I'm concerned the dream to start a business in your garage and grow it to 30 countries and 180,000 employees around the world is just that, a dream. As a financial services professional of 25 years, I've long subscribed to the principle that temporary debt utilized to grow a business or an economy is good debt. However, every family, every farmer, and every small business owner knows that you can't spend more than you bring in or you'll eventually go bankrupt. Why then does our deficit continue to increase and our debt grow ever larger while accountability remains non-existent? We're getting to the point of no return. I feel it, I believe you feel it, and the evidence in our daily lives makes it clear. Productivity growth dead last amongst top Western nations. Rampant crime, drug addiction, and homelessness. An affordability crisis not seen in generations. Let's consider this. How long is 1 million seconds? It's 11.5 days. How long is 1 billion seconds? It's 31 years and 8 months. How long is 1 trillion seconds? It's 31,709 years. Now let's relate that to government spending. The Liberal platform is proposing a $225 billion higher deficit. The Conservative platform is proposing a $100 billion higher deficit. And as John mentioned, our debt currently sits at $1.4 trillion. Because most of us no longer carry or use physical money, we no longer appreciate what the ramifications of spending millions, billions, and trillions of dollars are going to do to our future generations. The repeated year after year overly optimistic revenue assumptions that justify out-of-control spending promises is a habit that must stop. So let's discuss saving instead of spending. The People's Party of Canada is the only party proposing a totally different approach. Instead of raising the deficit and debt, we're committed to lowering them now. The People's Party of Canada will accomplish this by negotiating a fair trade agreement with the United States, instead of prolonging a trade war, which is currently increasing costs for Canadians at an estimated $9,000 US per household. And it's also killing jobs due to uncertainty. We're going to phase out supply management, creating a free, open, and fair system in the dairy, poultry, and egg sector that will save Canadians billions of dollars annually, thanks to the lower prices that they'll pay for these products and the higher productivity, while improving our trade relations with the U.S. and our other partners. We're going to work with provinces to move quickly on getting rid of interprovincial trade barriers, opening $100 billion in economic opportunities annually for Canadian businesses. And we're going to impose a moratorium on immigration, reducing the expense for taxpayers and government. And we're going to relieve the pressure on our healthcare system, our social programs, infrastructure, and housing. It's time to fix provinces' dependence on federal money. We'll bring down substantially the total amount of equalization payments to provinces and create a new formula that will provide the right incentives for provinces to adopt pro-growth, economic policies, ensuring that the right amount of money gets to the provinces that need it the most. That's a savings of $13 billion per year. We'll withdraw from all UN commitments and organizations that threaten our sovereignty, including the Global Compact on Migrations, the Paris Agreement on Climate Change, and the World Health Organization, and reduce our presence in UN institutions to a minimum, saving an additional billions of dollars. We're going to allow our oil and gas industry to grow by repealing Bills C-48 and C-69. We'll approve pipeline projects and we'll work with industry and our American partners to revive canceled projects, getting our resources to market. We'll save billions of dollars by no longer funding war. We'll continue to work closely with our allies to maintain a peaceful international order and focus international assistance exclusively on emergency humanitarian action in cases such as conflicts and natural disasters. Please, I'm not advocating going completely insular here, but tough adjustments need to be made to return Canada to the greatness it once was. And with these accomplishments, we'll be able to downsize government, balance the budget, and cut taxes while improving the services and quality of life Canadians hold dear. I want to close with this thought. Jim Rohn, a preeminent thought leader of our time, communicated, "I'll take care of me for you if you'll take care of you for me." What if government prioritized its citizens first, empowering them to thrive as opposed to being dictated to and made dependent on? Empowered so that they can grow this country the way it used to be. As a country, we could become 10 times stronger, 10 times happier, 10 times more Canadian. With that accomplished, think of how much better we could resume our role as leaders of peace and prosperity on the world stage. Through our higher standard of living, strong military, and Canadian families. The platform is entirely possible if we choose faith over fear, focus over distraction. It starts with stopping billions of our tax dollars leaving our country and also stopping the billions wasted at home. That's how we balance the budget. These are only some of the ideas I can share in the short amount of time afforded me today. Please see our full platform at peoplespartyofcanada.ca. The current way has not been working for a long time. The last 50 years of the traditional parties have proven that. On April 28th, vote for a better way. Vote Mark Sampson, People's Party of Canada. Thank you.
There we go. Perfect.
All right, before I end the evening and pass it on over to our closing remarks, I wanted to take you back. I don't know if many of you know my history, but I celebrated 50 years in Canada in September of 2024. Thank you. But ever more important than that, I'll take you back to November 20th, 1988. I was away in university. My father gave me a call that night and said, "What are you doing tonight? What are you doing tomorrow?" I said, "I'm going to school." You pay for education, I got to go get an education. He said, "Are you forgetting something?" I said, "No, I got my homework done, I'm ready to go." He said, "Get on the bus and come home. I need you tomorrow." So I was like, "Oh." And when my dad said, "I need you tomorrow," he needed me tomorrow. So I got on a bus in Hamilton, came home, made my way home, and I said, "What's up, Dad?" He goes, "Polls open at 9 a.m. We got to go vote." And I, as a teenager, scoffed. And he looked at me and said, "I didn't bring you to this country so you can be a spectator. I brought you to this country so you can have a voice in what happens in this country. And I implore you, if you have anybody in your life that is thinking maybe my vote doesn't count. Your vote counts. You have the right to be in the greatest country in the world, and you have the privilege to vote to be in the greatest country in the world. So please exercise that right. Now for our closing remarks, we'll bring Tricia up.
Hello, my name is Shelley Wright. I'm the Director of Canadian Educators for Safe Technology, and we are here today, our group, just to make sure that we have candidates who care about Canadians' health and safety. We are concerned about children and the impact of screen time on their development, and it's also including the RF radiation. So we have Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and cellular signals that also impact their bodies. We're also concerned about the biodiversity and the impact that wireless radiation from cell towers can have on biodiversity. And so there are recommendations from the HESA Health and Safety Standing Committee that were tabled in 2015 and 2016 by different parties. We just want to make sure that these recommendations are implemented, and so today we're going to the Candidates Who Care website. It's c4st.org, Candidates Who Care, to take a look to see if your candidate does care about the health and safety of Canadians. So anyone can check that out to see if their candidate will support the implementation of these HESA recommendations. Well, I can say that for now, there's still a few more candidates that will be signing up, but right now I know that John Olthuis is signed up, as well as Andrew Harrigan has signed up as well, so we have a Liberal and an NDP person signed up, and we're just going to encourage the others to sign up as well too. So I'm sure that's going to happen very soon before voters go to the polls to vote, because there will be, we are linked to 30 networks as well as 21,000 signatories. Many voters are concerned about health and safety, and they will be taking a look and be influenced by this list when they go to vote. So I'm sure we will see more candidates on board. There's a number of different actions they can take, and one is to champion a bill. That would be fantastic. Another is to, with their caucus, just have a meeting with our team, Canadians for Safe Technology. Frank Clegg, who is the CEO of he's the CEO of this organization, Canadians for Safe Technology. He is also past president of Microsoft Canada, so he understands the impacts RF radiation from wireless devices can have on our Canadians. And so if these members of Parliament if these people can meet with our team and share this information with other members of Parliament, that would be ideal. And so just providing support, and that they would like to support the implementation of the 12 recommendations of the HESA recommendations from the Standing Committee, that would be ideal.
And these recommendations people can find on the website?
Yes, they can. So the recommendations are right there on our website. So that's c4st.org. Candidates Who Care. It's all one word, all squeezed in together. Yes, my concern is, because I'm the Director of Canadian Educators for Safe Technology, the one that jumps into mind right off is children and screen time, and any protective measures we can have to assess the impact of wireless radiation on children. To study this is really important, not just for children, but also for biodiversity and animals, wildlife, and the environment. We also know that RF radiation isn't sustainable. The wireless radiation isn't as sustainable as fiber optics to the premises, where people can have as much wireless as they want inside their home. So we want to just help Canadians be aware that these recommendations are super important, and it was over a decade ago when they were tabled by two majority governments in 2015 and 2016.
Why vote for PPC? Because for the last 50 years, we've seen promise after promise after promise being broken. Debt and deficits are at astronomical levels. And once again, the other two platforms are saying spending, 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 increasing the debt and deficit by another billions of dollars. So it's time for change. It's time to put money back in Canadians' pockets and stop this merry-go-round that we're on of spending and debts and deficits. We're right away going to negotiate, as we should, sit down like gentlemen and negotiate a fair trade agreement tariffs are nothing but a tax on Canadians, and it's being proven with the instability and the job losses because nobody knows what's going to happen. But it's time to have a fair deal with our largest trading partner and our biggest ally.
In Barrie South, Innisfil, we've had the same MP for just as long as we had Justin Trudeau. So he's a good man. I'm not going to say anything bad about him. So there's going to be an MP who is actually in the opposition. It's very difficult to get some things passed here. So if you have a Liberal government, and I think we will have another Liberal government going forward, I'm hoping, but it would be nice to have a strong MP here that represents the current government. Mark Carney is really the reason why I'm actually running. I followed the gentleman's career right through, ever since Stephen Harper, when he was working through trying to save the economy. The man is brilliant. He's an economist, well educated, and he actually got Trump to recognize him and Canada as a sovereign nation and Mark Carney as the Prime Minister of Canada. That was something that meant a lot to me when that happened. So I think the man has the ability to do that. He can bring us forward, and he can settle things with the United States and Europe.
That was the update from Barrie Chamber of Commerce event. Check out our other election coverage. Thank you for watching.